Hi, everyone.
It's Sachin and Deepa. Can you guys hear us okay?
Yeah.
All right, beautiful. Well, it's so nice to be able to do this. How about technology, right? It does have some amazing advantages. I'd love to get everyone to show their faces on video. I know some of you probably haven't had a haircut in a while, or eyebrows are growing out, mustaches are growing in. I don't know what's going on, but uh, I guess that's the advantage for me. I learned how to cut my own hair when I was 12 years old and have never gone to a barber ever since. And I know I'm bald now, but I've been cutting my own hair even when I had longer hair for quite some time now. So I'm pretty self-sufficient in the personal grooming department. I'd love to use the chat. I think that'll help us get a lot out of this conversation. That way we're not interrupting each other. And if you've got some background noise, then it's probably a good idea to mute yourself. So I'd love to get everyone to type into the chat where they're from so we can at least see where everyone's from. And that would be a good place to start. I'm going to be streaming this in our Facebook community, so you'll just have to give me a couple seconds as I do that. But in the meantime, go ahead and type in the chat exactly where you're from. See some familiar faces. It's awesome. Okay, so if you're just joining us, everyone's typing in where they are from. And I'm just streaming to our Facebook community, so just give me just 2 seconds as I do that. And then we'll have a fun conversation with all of you. Okay, awesome. Looks like we're live in our Facebook community as well. Welcome, everyone. Once again, it's Sachin and Deepa.
Hi, everyone.
We're excited to hang out with you guys and gals, and we're also excited to hear what everyone's been up to. So I want to make this as interactive as possible. I want to have some fun and some humor, and what I'm going to suggest is that we keep it good vibes only. So if you have something negative to say, keep it to yourself. If you've got something positive to say, then by all means, let's have a fun, meaningful conversation. We've got people here from all over the place. We've got people from Toronto, from California, from Ohio, Maryland, Ohio, welcome. Keswick, Calgary, Mississauga. Got some neighbors in here.
Brampton,
California, South Bend, Indiana. Awesome.
Switzerland.
All right, Switzerland as well. Cool. So if you haven't already, go ahead and type in where you're from. And what I'd also love to know is, what has been your biggest breakthrough so far? So you can go ahead and type that in. What have you realized about yourself, about your family, about your career, about God, whatever it is, but what's been your biggest, most positive revelation from all of this? I think for me personally, my biggest personal revelation has been that this is exactly what I've wanted, not just for myself, but for a lot of people, because one of the things that we tell our patients to do and where people get the greatest outcomes when we work with them is those people that actually have the time, the focus, the know-how, and all the other objections in their life are removed, and they can focus on themselves. And when you focus on yourself, that inadvertently, directly and indirectly focuses on your health. So, there's all kinds of reasons to go to bed early. There's all kinds of reasons to be outside in nature right now. There's all kinds of reasons to spend time with your family. There's all kinds of reasons to learn how to cook and get familiar with foods and spices and how simple life can be. And simplicity, I feel, is one of the keys to success when somebody's on their healing journey. So this has given us maybe not in the way we want it to be, but it's given all of us a time to pause and reflect and focus on what's really important and start asking ourselves a new set of questions so that we can create a better, more beautiful life for ourselves. I hope none of you go back to the way things were. I know part of our bodies, part of our souls is craving that conformity and that comfort zone. But I know for sure that your comfort zone is where your dreams go to die. And so this is an opportunity for us to get out of our comfort zone and be in a place where we can grow and we can expand and explore and try new things. And I bet you there's people on this call that wanted a break from work, that wanted to, didn't want to see their boss or didn't want to do one more thing, and they needed a break. Some of us were on the brink of burnout, so this has given us a chance to rest and recover without having to ask for permission. Some of us are too afraid to ask for help. We're too afraid to ask for the time off. We're too afraid to tell people that, hey, we need to slow down a little bit. So, the universe, God, whatever you believe in, has given us this moment to pause and really reflect and ask a few questions. So that's been my biggest takeaway. I'd love for Deepa to share hers. And if anyone wants to volunteer and take the floor, this isn't the Sachin and Deepa show. This is really our chance to come together as a tribe and a community. I'll read through some of the responses, but Deepa, what's been your biggest takeaway so far?
I think from all of this happening, my biggest takeaway has been this period of time is really a test to our mental strength and our mental outlook, because you really see two sides of the coin. You see people that are freaking out and flipping out. And, I think fear and anxiety and uncertainty during this time is normal, but we can also make that shift. We can decide to go down the rabbit hole and get all caught up with all the things that are going on, or we can decide to make that shift and we can decide to choose a different path, right? As Sachin was saying, this is a time for us to be grateful for all that we have. This is a time for us to actually slow down. This is a time for us to go within. This is a time for us to, reflect on all the things that we never had time to do. This is an opportunity that's been given to us to actually have the time to do those things, to have the time to just slow down and spend more time with our families. So I think that's kind of been my greatest revelation. Like, there have been days where I felt stressed about everything, but I always try to focus on the positive, make that shift in my mindset to really focus on, hey, I woke up today. I still have a house. I have my family. I have my loved ones near me, and that's all I need, right? So I think it's been a great chance for us to all really reflect on what's important to us and what really matters to us. And that for me has been my biggest revelation out of all of this.
Now, we don't want to minimize some of the challenges that some people are facing. And I also want you to realize that it's not all sunshine and rainbows for us. We actually, next weekend, had an event planned for 150 practitioners here in Toronto. And we sold out the event. We're all excited. We have like an amazing lineup of speakers and everything. And yet, unfortunately, we had to cancel the event, or postpone the event rather. But what we did instead was made the event available to everyone for completely free and completely online. So sometimes you can, when life hands you lemons, you can actually, when life hands you lemons, you can make lemonade, but I also like to plant the seeds. So this is a good time to be able to plant some seeds that will, bear you some fruit at some point in the future. This is a time to be kind to each other. This is a time to, show our love, not just let people know we love them or know that we love them, but to actually show it in some way, shape, or form. It's probably never been easier to show someone you care about them just by simply checking in on them and things like that. And be there for your fellow human being, as much as you can. And I also think it's important to have a sense of humor. I try to keep things, pretty engaging and light. I don't know. I don't think any one of us on this call actually knows what's going on. We're being fed information from so many different directions. But what I do know I can do is control how I respond to things. I can't control what information I'm being fed. None of us can. but what we can all control is how we feel about what we're being fed. So I personally watch the mainstream media as a form of entertainment. And that's my viewpoint on it. It's entertainment. I view it that way. I filter it that way into my conscious and subconscious mind. I don't take it for face value. Okay. I don't know if anyone's ever seen I think it's the latest Mission Impossible. And it's a scene, there's a scene where they fool this guy into thinking his atomic bomb went off. And then he admits to it. And then the whole scene breaks down and the whole thing was completely faked. Like, it's almost like Hollywood laughing back at us to a certain degree, you know, like there's so many people that, will tell you to be careful what you allow into your mind, because when we're being fed a message of stress instead of a message of hope, our brain automatically shifts into fight or flight. It's impossible for it not to. If you had a blood sugar meter on, what you would see while you're watching the news is your blood sugar going up as you're watching the news, because your cortisol level goes up when you're watching the news, and cortisol's main function in your body is to raise blood sugar. When you increase blood sugar over 120, you actually decrease macrophagy function by 75%. So the white part of your immune system that goes in and kills things that don't belong in your body basically stop working or work 75% less effectively when you're under fight or flight type of stress situation, because a white blood cell doesn't save you from a lion chasing you. So our body has this smart, amazing defense system, but if we're using it inappropriately, it's not going to work the way it's supposed to. And when we're stressed out, it affects our sleep. When we're stressed out, it affects, of course, our immune system, our digestive system. All the things that we're trying to heal right now are negatively impacted by stress. So if you're going to watch the news, then just have the goofy filter on, right? Like, just know that this is entertainment and watch it as such and deal with it as such. That's been helpful for me in doing all this. And then also knowing that no matter what happens, I think that the world that we're going to see moving forward is a world where positivity is rewarded, not greed. So you can be positive starting now, because that's going to be the currency of the future. I think people are going to deal with less of people's bullshit. At least I hope all of you deal with less of people's bullshit in your life. I hope this is a chance for you to filter your list of friends, right? Who do you want to cut off moving forward from this point? You know, you're the average of 5 people that you hang out with. Who are those 5 people that you want to hang out with? Who's calling you right now? Who's engaging with you and connecting with you right now? Those are your real friends. So this is important for all of you guys to understand. And I hope that this gives all of us a time to pause and reflect on what's really important to us. Okay, I'll let you go, and then is there anyone, if you can raise your hands or type in the chat if there's anything that you'd like to say. We'd love to hear from some of you and see what you're doing to either add value to your communities, or what you're doing that you're finding that's working with you from a coping standpoint.
Yeah, so I was talking to a friend last week and was just asking her how things were going, and she said, "Oh, we're at home. There's nothing else we can do." And I said, "Well, there's lots you can do. This is a time for us to prioritize our self-care. This is a time for us to prioritize health. This is a time for us to prioritize our sleep, to prioritize cooking good, healthy food at home, to prioritize, all these things." It's like we see all these articles now about immune health, but immune health is all about a healthy lifestyle. It's about what we've always been talking about as a community. It's about eating healthy. It's about sleeping. It's about avoiding toxins. It's about self-care. It's about self-love. It's about meaningful relationships. All these things impact not just our immune system, but our entire well-being. So this is a time for us to focus on those things. So, we really want to try to leverage this time. I know there's been lots of companies that are, really giving back and doing things for free and, really trying to share with their communities. You know, I really love going to yoga class, and my yoga studios doing free online yoga classes on their Instagram. So anyone can access it, not just members of the studio. So this is a time for us to focus on these things because we're at home and we have the time to do so. So really try to leverage this time period as a positive time period for yourself, for your family. This is a time for parents to role model good health to your children as well. So, you know, that's kind of what I would recommend in terms of doing some things at home while you have this time.
Okay, so I'd love to see any questions that some of you have or things that you want to share. So if you have any questions for myself or for Deepa or for both of us or for anyone in the community, feel free to go and type that into the chat. We're happy to address any of those things. Looks like Hannah says she's got a bunch of people muted on Facebook. Yes, I can see why. Dr. Sumi says that this is a time for clarity and important for people's priorities in their life, really figuring those out. I definitely agree. And yeah, Trisha says that stakes are higher for practicing good health. You know, just I think all of you kind of understand our message, which and our belief system and our value system is that health really begins in your home, nowhere else. I mean, that's where we want it to begin. And that you are ultimately the doctor of the future. You know, with this multi-trillion-dollar medical system, the only advice that they've offered us is to stay inside, isolate ourselves, and wash our hands. I mean, that's the only guidance that we're being given right now. And I think that that's a huge disservice because this is actually, the way I view this, this is a once in a lifetime maybe opportunity where for 2, 3, 4, maybe even 8 weeks, you can really, you know, focus on yourself. And, you know, it seems like from a government standpoint to prevent like mass riots and looting and things like that, they're trying to keep us quiet by paying us a little bit of money, which I definitely appreciate. But, you know, it's for what it's worth, we got to make the most of that. And if our mortgages are on pause or our rent is on pause, our expenses are on pause, then maybe we should use this time to kind of de-stress, decompress a little bit, and then really focus on working on ourselves. You know, one thing I'll tell you is that, and I say this to all my clients, is that if your health, for example, is a 6 out of 10, then everything in your life is a 6 out of 10 or less. So if your health is a 6 out of 10, how you are as a partner is a 6 or less. How you are as an entrepreneur is a 6 or less. How you are as an employee or a business owner or a member of your community or an aunt or an uncle, spouse, whatever your roles are in life, you're a 6 out of 10 or less in each and every single one of those roles. Now, if I move your health up to an 8, now everything in your life, the potential for everything in your life goes up to an 8 or less. So this is an opportunity for us to, you know, be of more service, to be of more value, to be of greater capacity, to be of greater you know, capability after we come out of this, whatever situation is, however long it takes. However long it takes, guys, we're all in this together. So that's one thing that I want to remind you of, is that no matter how long this takes, all of us are in this together. There isn't like a certain group of people that are allowed outside and only you're stuck indoors, you know, and everyone's stuck indoors, right? Everyone's not working, like unless they're super essential. So we're all in this together. It's not like you have to feel like, oh my God, this is happening to me. You know, there's a collective, you know, issue going on for all of us. And so I know sometimes if it's just, imagine this was you. Imagine you lost your job and you were financially struggling, but you were all alone and everyone else was, you know, everyone else's life was perfectly fine and unshattered. You would feel so alone. But the fact that we're all in this together allows us to go through these emotional roller coasters and challenges, whatever's coming up for us, but we're also able to be supported by other people. Like right now is a time, if you need help, the likelihood of your friend answering the phone is so much higher than it ever was before. Sometimes we let calls go to voicemail because we're so busy. Sometimes we don't respond to texts because we're so busy, right? Sometimes we don't respond to emails because we're so busy. My email inbox is at 0 right now because I've responded to every email, responded to every communication that's come in, because I'm craving communication right now. I'm craving connection right now. And I know all of you are as well. We basically sent this email out 2 hours ago, and, almost 50 people registered because we're all craving connection, right? Normally, to put together people on a call like this would take a week of planning in our schedule, would require like 3 emails going out and a follow-up email and all these sequences and complexity. But instead, people are craving connection right now so much more than anything else that it's easier to bring people together. And, it's easier to bring like-minded folks in the same room, even if it's a Zoom room. My family the other day, it was my nephew's 18th birthday, and we were able to, my cousin, sorry. He's only 18, so I feel like he's my nephew. My cousin's birthday, and we had like 50 people on a Zoom call together. And had it been in person, not all of us would have been there. So at least it was on Zoom, and all of us were there celebrating with him because our family's scattered all over North America. So it's a time where a lot of people are coming together. Our families came together. Deepa just had a call with her international family a couple hours ago, and I'm having this call with you guys and gals. So it's an amazing opportunity. All right, out of curiosity, how many of you would be interested in a career in healthcare or a career in, health coaching or services like that? I'd be definitely curious to see if anyone says yes to that. And if the answer is no, maybe just type in no, just so I know that you're engaged here. Now, when I say career, I guess I should be a little bit more clear. Maybe a career coaching people towards health, guiding people towards health, with the ability to do it from the comfort of your own home, over the internet, for example, kind of like how we're doing right now. So maybe a different type of healthcare practitioner than a traditional healthcare practitioner, somebody who can help people in their homes, not necessarily in their office, because I know that there's going to be a huge need for stuff like that in the coming months and years and decades. I don't think good health is ever going to go out of style, and I think that these type of events actually remind us of how important our health is. Our health is more valuable now than it's ever been, and it's an appreciating asset. So having good health will never be a depreciating asset. As you get older, you get wiser, you make better decisions. You should be getting healthier, not sicker as you age. So one thing that we've been saying for a long time is that health is ultimately our responsibility, right? During the greatest crisis of our lifetimes, we're just being told to stay at home and wash our hands. That's it. That's the best they've got, right? And not to take anything away from the people that are in the front lines, because trust me, I don't want to be on the front lines. I'll openly acknowledge that, okay? I don't have the courage to do that. So these people are super courageous. They're putting themselves at risk. They're putting their families at risk. I'm not willing to do that. So there are people that are. So I'm super grateful that they're doing this. But I think what they're also realizing is that the average person that's coming in has no idea how to take care of themselves, which means they have no idea how to take care of their families. And so when people emerge from this, quarantine that's been imposed upon us, are they being given any tools to make them healthier during that period of time? Or is all they're being told to do just maintaining where their health is? And most people have deteriorating health. Okay, unless you're doing things to actively improve your health is deteriorating. So this is important to recognize what tools were being provided or what tools were not being provided. And we've got to be our own best doctors. We've got to be our own health advocates more now than ever before. One thing that I'm actually doing is I'm taking a training course right now by Dr. Shiva, who's an MIT doctor, and he invented email, but he's a systems-based guy. So he actually looks at healthcare from a systems perspective. And that's how I look at healthcare. People say, when people say I'm an expert in this problem or in this problem, liver disease or thyroid disease or autoimmune conditions, that in and of itself means that that person doesn't understand how systems biology works. Because nothing happens in isolation. You can't heal your liver unless you're healing everything. Can't heal your thyroid unless you're healing everything. Been saying this for years. The same blood goes everywhere. So if your blood is healing, it should be healing every organ, cell, system in your body. If your blood is inflammatory and destructive, it's going to be destroying and dissolving and toxifying every organ in your body. Now, some organs have different thresholds of what they can tolerate, but they all are being destroyed. The same blood goes everywhere. That's why when somebody says, oh, you're just a diabetic, no, that's impossible. When somebody's saying you have heart disease, it's impossible to just, so what, everything else in their body is perfectly fine. Every organ system is perfectly squeaky clean except every blood vessel in their body. So you can see how compartmentalization of healthcare, even in a natural setting, can be very, very confusing to the average consumer. The average consumer is then led to believe that these organs are compartmentalized and separate from the rest of their body. And that's not how healthcare works. So I think all of us can agree to that. I don't think there's any lack of agreement there in terms of this systems biology-based approach. And in fact, a few months ago, I had lunch with Jeffrey Bland, and this is exactly what we talked about. We talked about how even natural integrative medicines, because they're becoming hyper-specialized, are not using a systems biology approach. And so that segmentation is actually detrimental to the public's perception of how the healthcare system should actually work. And so the future of healthcare is the exact opposite. So instead of people being super specialized, they will be super generalized. So if Hannah were to come to me, the worst thing I could do for her is fix one part of her body. That's the worst thing I could do for her. The best thing I could do for her is teach her how to fix every part of her body simultaneously at the same time. To me, that type of healthcare, that type of awareness is priceless. And it's also timeless, because the things that you learn that make every part of your body healthy at the same time, every time, and if you could tap into that anytime you wanted to, and you had the tools and resources to tap into that anytime you wanted to, that's a priceless form of healthcare. Now imagine you could take that form of healthcare and you could teach it to your children. You know, the greatest advantage we can give our children is not money. Because as you can see, money is fake, right? They could just keep printing more, throwing it into the system, just keep printing more, and completely devalue the currency that you already have. And so that money can be very quickly become worthless. But health will always be priceless. So I feel there's going to be a huge surge of people. I used to call this the Super Bowl moment. I didn't know it was going to be a pandemic moment. But I always dreamed of a day where this type of healthcare would be sought after by people, where people would be seeking it out and it would be their top priority. And that moment has actually come. People want health, they want answers, they want leadership, they want to know how to take care of themselves. And I predicted many years ago that the healthcare system would actually implode on itself. So not to say I told you so, but I've been saying this for a very long time because we've seen this coming. And the practitioners that I coach, you know, I've been telling them this for a long time, that this is going to come. I didn't know it was going to happen this year. Okay, so I don't think anyone knew what was going to happen this year on January or in December 31st. Nobody had this on their vision board, at least nobody on this call did. But you know, we've got to make the most of it now. And this is our chance to send a message to ourselves, to our families, to our communities, what's actually important to us. And for my fellow healthcare practitioners, I see Carlos on here. Hey, what's up, brother? This is a chance to send a message to our patients that, do you want whole body health, whole system health, or do you want isolated fragments of health? Because isolated fragments of health ultimately is not how the body works. Yes, Hannah says it's an illusion of health. Absolutely. So it's time for all these illusions in our lives to dissolve and for us to take full ownership. Now, here's the good part about all this is that true healthcare is usually free, immediately accessible, and pretty much works for everybody. That's true healthcare. So true healthcare is usually free or pretty close to free, immediately accessible, and works pretty much for everybody. So you want to install into your life specific principles that are going to help you move your health in the right direction. This is a good time for all of us to focus on our sleep, a good time to focus on our communication skills with each other, but also with ourselves. It's a good time to pay attention to our thoughts and our dialogue. It's a good time to pay attention to the food that we're eating. It's a good time for us to pay attention to our time in nature and our not just time in nature, but our true connection with nature. I see so many people walking through the woods, and that's great. That's half the battle, but really being still in the woods, not walking through them, but having stillness in them, that's going to be what you should be seeking. So think about your mind, right? So people race through their minds, and just like they race through the woods. It's when we can be still, that's when we can actually activate and conjure up the right side of our brain. So when you're going for a walk, walk up really close to a tree and stare at the bark. Stare at the little ants and little creatures that are crawling on it. Stare at the moss, like get up really close to it. And these patterns and shapes will start actually unlocking and activating your right brain, which activates and unlocks your creativity. And so it's pretty cool what happens when you're able to do that. You'll get answers to questions you've been ruminating on for sometimes weeks or months or even years will come to you because now you're in a relaxed, parasympathetic, right brain activated state of mind. The greatest thinkers of our time and the greatest thinkers in the past would always spend significant amounts of time in nature in order for them to unlock their creativity. I don't think they knew what I just told you, but I think they intuitively knew that that was the right thing to do. See, here's the thing. You don't have to understand how and why things work. I don't understand how a calculator works. I don't understand how my computer even works. But that doesn't mean that I can't use it. It doesn't mean I can't do something beautiful with it. That doesn't mean that I can't leverage its sophistication to make my life easy, to use it to do things that are meaningful for me. So health is the same way. You don't have to know how anything works in order for you to be able to apply it. The application is where the result comes from, not from the knowledge. So many of us have been fooled with this idea. It used to be such that in order for you to know what I know, you would have had to gone to school for a long time. So I see Valencia on here, I see Carlos on here, I see a few other healthcare practitioners, I see Jen on here. And I think most of us, and I see Dr. Heather, I think most of us would wholeheartedly agree that there's so much that we know, but there's so little of what we know that we actually apply. And the things that we didn't learn in school are the things that I can say with certainty are the things that actually get results for our patients. I know there's times where I need to have my background and my training and my designations and those type of things, but 95% of the time, it's the things that I didn't learn in school that I'm actually applying that's helping me get the results for my clients. Because again, real health, true health is free, accessible, and works on everybody. You don't have to know why or how things work. We learned how and why things work. I don't have to know a 12-hour dissertation on sleep to go to sleep at 9 o'clock and have that strategy work for me. It works for me whether I know how it works or not. And it works every single time, every single day. So it used to be that to know this information and to know how and why things work, you had to go to school for a pretty long period of time. And that information was not available to people because we didn't have the internet. We didn't have, all the things that we have right now that make information accessible to us. Information used to be very, very valuable. Now information has basically zero access point. It's at basically, there's a zero access point to get to information. You can just type in any question you want into your phone and get the answer. And if you spend at least an hour researching something, you can know a lot about a particular topic, especially if you find the right resource, a trusted resource to educate you. You can know more than your practitioner even knows because they might be focused on something else. Their interest might be something different. So information has been decentralized and democratized. It's available to everybody. So you're going to see in this new era coming up that because we can access all of the world's information at our fingertips, the value isn't going to be there. The value is going to be in the application of what the information is. So if I spend an hour giving somebody advice, and let's say I charge them, $500 for that advice, they can make that same advice worth $0, or they can make that same advice priceless. The way they make it worth $0 is they don't apply it. The real value starts when the customer gets off the call or when the customer leaves the office, not when they're in the office, right? If I tell them to go to bed at 10 o'clock, there's no value in that unless they go to bed at 10 o'clock. But if they go to bed at 10 o'clock and they do that as many nights as possible for the rest of their life, now that information became priceless. It just keeps paying over and over and over again. That's the power of working with somebody who advises you on what to do. It's a skill that gets better over time versus pills that run out over time. Okay, skills only get stronger and better established over a period of time. So this is why we teach these things to our clients. I'd love to see if anyone I'm just kind of on my soapbox here, but I'd love to see what kind of feedback you guys have about this, what questions you have for us. We're happy to share. And, I know all of you are kind of tuned in. I'd love to hear what comments you have. And if anyone wants to jump on board, then I'm happy to give you the floor as well. Is there anything you want to add?
No, I think you pretty much summed it up.
Let's see. Charmaine saying, in our home, we're loving this opportunity to homeschool our kids and teach them life skills that they do not learn in school. Yeah, this is a great time for all of us to learn how to garden, right? This would be a great time for us to learn how to plant things and to watch them grow. One of the things that is very important for our brain is watching things grow, and that increases our dopamine levels. It increases our reward centers and promotes healthy reward center function in our brain because we're actually watching something grow on a daily basis, and then we're harvesting it towards the end. So it's this risk versus reward loop that we keep filling. What I've typically found is one of the things that a lot of people struggle with is rewarding themselves. So I feel like a lot of people do work, they put themselves out there and they do things and they accomplish goals, but then they don't reward themselves, or when they do reward themselves, they sabotage themselves. So you might have somebody who follows their dietary guidelines for a week, and then they go and sabotage themselves by eating something that they shouldn't be eating. Now, the reason people will use food as a source of pleasure is because fatty foods, particularly sugary foods and rich foods, stimulate our body's reward center, and it gets our brain to produce a little bit more dopamine, or in some people, a lot more dopamine. Some people genetically need to experience more pleasure, or experience more pleasure with the same stimulus based on their unique genetic makeup. So some people are more prone to addiction than others, and the reason for that has to do with their unique chemistry. But what I've learned over the years is many people don't reward themselves properly. They reward themselves with sabotaging behaviors. And so instead, one of the things that you can do is, as you're accomplishing goals, let's say you clean your closet out, have a mini goal for yourself. Okay, buy yourself something small, but something nice, something that you'll use, over the years. So buy yourself a kitchen tool that you might use on a daily basis, or buy yourself, like a camera that you might use to do your Facebook Lives or to help you promote your business. I like to purchase, or I like to invest in things that are anchors. And every little thing on my desk or artwork around my home is a little trophy for me accomplishing specific goals that I set out for myself. So I get to be constantly reminded of accomplishing that goal, and it fulfills those reward centers. You want to do things to reward yourself on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annual basis. Don't just have one reward at the end of the year or at the end of a major task. Have mini rewards built in, and so that you're winning, you feel like you're winning constantly. You don't feel like you're winning at the end of 6 months or at the end of the year. You feel like you're winning the entire time. So, reward centers are very important. And, this is where dopamine really comes in. So the way you make dopamine is by making sure you get enough tyrosine in your diet, which is an amino acid, as well as vitamin B6 and iron. Those are the three main elements that you need. The best way to increase dopamine, there's a couple ways to increase dopamine. The easiest way is to get outside in the morning. So even if you just go outside, even if it's a cloudy day, and just spend 5 minutes. I actually don't even care if you check your email while you're outside, because your brain is going to be flooded with so much light. Even checking your email, even if you do that, you're probably not going to do it very long, because you're going to just naturally relax and you're naturally going to kind of succumb to the beautiful surroundings. But getting outside and exposing your brain, your eyes to bright light like that, even if it's cloudy, it's still enough of a stimulus, will increase your dopamine levels. Another way to increase dopamine levels is to take a cold shower. Okay. I know it doesn't sound very exciting right now. One of the things that I'll do, I did it this morning, is I'll take a shower, I'll take a sauna, I'll do a hot sauna, and then the cold shower actually feels very invigorating. But if you kind of wake up cold, taking a cold shower doesn't sound very exciting. But that's one way. Another way to increase your dopamine, even if you just do it for 30 seconds, you feel so good afterwards, and you feel such a sense of accomplishment. Again, that's that dopamine pathway. You get such a sense of accomplishment because you realize shortly after doing it that you didn't die, number one, and number two, that you're probably less than 0.001% of people that took this action in the morning. So you're already winning. You're already physiologically winning, and you're ahead of the curve, and you're ready to have a pretty amazing day. So dopamine is very dependent on light stimulation, and then again, the cold stimulation can be quite powerful. Now, bonus points if you take a cold shower outside and hose yourself down. Those are like mega bonus points. That's probably the most insane way to raise your dopamine, but I'm sure that would work as well, in case you're wondering. Being outside also helps you regulate your sleep cycle. So a good night's sleep doesn't start in the evening, it actually starts in the morning. And by exposing yourself to light, our brain kind of gets a sense of what time of day it is, and it enables it to set your biological clock. In the evening, as much as possible, you want to turn off all overhead lighting, because in nature, lighting would not be coming from straight above us. It would be coming from us at face level if there's a fire, or slightly below us if we're sitting by a campfire. So our brain determines how shadows are cast and the frequency of light in order to determine what time of day it is. So I wear blue blockers in the evening. We turn off as much as we can all the overhead lighting, and we have uplighting coming instead. So uplighting would be coming from lamps that are set on the ground. So we have a salt lamp that you can set up. We have this argonite lamp in our TV room, and we'll turn that one on, which has a nice yellow glow to it. So, use warmer temperatures in the evening, and then cover up your skin as much as you can, because your skin is also a photoreceptor. So we don't just perceive light information with our eyes, we perceive it with our skin. Okay, so our skin is also an organ that perceives light, and this has been very well documented in the literature. So cover up your whole body if you can, and protect it from artificial light exposure. So if you're wearing blue blockers, but then you're wearing a tank top and shorts, and you're exposing yourself to all this light, you're still doing yourself a disservice. Artificial lighting decreases melatonin by 40%. Natural lighting, like candle lights and fires, and moonlight only decrease it by about 2 to 5%. So there's a significantly less reduction in melatonin production if we're exposed to artificial light versus natural light like fire or moonlight. So just something for you to keep in mind. Now's a good time to light a fire. It's almost the start, well, it's the start of spring already, but it's cold enough that you could light a fire in the evening if you wanted to. And now's a good time for those stories that you had to read a book next to candlelight because of this great pandemic that you were part of. Now's the time to make some epic stories that you could tell your kids and your grandkids, 30 years from now, because of all the cool things that we're going through. Melatonin, in case you're wondering, isn't just a sleep hormone. Melatonin binds to your adrenals and tells your adrenals to stop making cortisol. So melatonin, one of its functions is to decrease adrenal cortisol production. And melatonin also helps with boosting our immune function and activating our immune system, regulating it and balancing it. So when we decrease melatonin production by 40% because we're exposed to artificial lighting, again, using a systems biology approach, the non-systems biology approach is, melatonin improves sleep, right? That's a very linear way of thinking of melatonin. No, melatonin decreases cortisol production, gets us in a more parasympathetic state. Every organ, tissue, cell in our body now gets a signal of healing, repair, and regeneration. Our immune system now starts becoming properly activated and regulated, so it starts killing off cells that are weak, cells that are damaged, or cells of viruses and bacteria and fungi that don't belong in our system. So think of melatonin as your best friend. It is one of your best friends because of the global impact that it has on your health. Again, the systems biology aspect of this understanding is very critical. So to be your own best doctor, to be your own best patient, you've got to understand this methodology of healthcare. And it's so simple. Okay, nothing I told you costs you any money. You go outside every day, doesn't cost you any money. But if you were to take supplements for all these things I told you to do, how expensive do you think that would be? And I'm not saying anything against supplements. I take supplements. There are certain things that all of us need. We may not be getting enough in the soil. And especially if you're calorie restricted like I am, I don't eat a lot of food every day, then I need to get my nutrition from somewhere. So one thing for all of us to realize is that the things that we need to do to be healthy are very simple, and they're connected through a systems biology approach. So when you fix one thing, you fix everything. Let me ask Carlos. Carlos, when you sleep better, what organs heal in your body? Can I unmute you? Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
I couldn't find the unmute button for some reason.
That's all right.
Everything heals in your body when you sleep better.
Okay. When we stress less, which organs heal better in our body?
All of them.
All of them, right? When we get outside and get sunlight, which organs heal in our body?
All of them.
All of them, right? When we laugh more, when we have deeper relationships with people, when we feel good about ourselves, all of our organs heal better, faster, and deeper. So this idea that you can heal only one organ at a time is the false dichotomy of all of healthcare. And I know there's a lot of cognitive dissonance in healthcare, so it's hard for even healthcare providers to grasp this because it's so far removed from the way we're conditioned to think in a linear, mechanistic, reductionistic model of healthcare. But healthcare, the opposite of true healthcare is reductionism. True healthcare is holism, where you heal and fix everything simultaneously. That's the only way it works. There isn't one nutrient or one mineral that's more important than the other. You know, when the Challenger spaceship crashed, it was an O-ring, which was like just a couple of pennies that caused that entire system to fail. and explode on live television and kill everyone on board. So in a systems biology approach, everything is important. Everything is extremely valuable. There isn't one thing that's more important than the other. So if you're a healthcare provider, that's the future of healthcare. Okay. If you're a patient, then, or a non-healthcare provider, guess what? The only person that can fix you is you. The only person that can make you go to bed on time is you. The only person that's going to get you to go outside first thing in the morning is you. The only person that's going to get you to think positive thoughts and have gratitude and go for that walk or turn off the overhead lighting in the evening, it's you. And there isn't a single system of healthcare that can save you from yourself. So no matter how much money you pay, no matter who you see, no matter how specialized they are, no matter how much or how little they charge you, no matter who paid for the appointment, whether it was your insurance or your government or your mom or your sister or you, nothing can save you from yourself. That's the beauty of it. That's the whole beauty of it. And then, you know, one thing that's interesting to me is how we don't learn any of this in school. We learn so many things that I can guarantee that you'll never use ever in your life. And you probably knew it when you were learning it. Why am I learning this stuff? And you never used it. You were right all along. But you didn't learn how to do three things. And I've been saying this for how many years? This is how they have you buy the balls, ladies and gentlemen, because they didn't teach you how to grow your own food. So now you got to rely on their food. Okay. They didn't teach you how to manage money, so they can manipulate you. They don't even teach people how currency works, right? That's why they can just print money out of thin air. So they didn't teach you anything about that, and they didn't teach you anything about health. And all they can offer people right now are these Band-Aid solutions that still don't teach you any of these things. Why aren't they running programs right now to teach people how to grow their own food at home? How to start your own garden? Right? Why don't they flood the channels with that? Why don't they flood the channels, take off all the crap that's on TV? And why don't they flood the channels with things that you can do at home to take care of yourself and your family? Why don't they flood the channels with things that you can do to manage your finances better? Instead of just giving people money, just throwing money at people, which it just evaporates into thin air. Why not teach them skills? So interesting times, my friends. The best of times. I know it's the scariest of times for some of us, but I believe it's the best of times. All right. Deepo, you want to teach people how to garden? We have other experts that can teach us that.
I'm learning myself. I'll bring my mom here. She'll and you can bring your grandfather here.
Yeah. Somebody's asking, I'm in a high rise and limited outdoor access. Any recommendations? Additional vitamin D? Yeah, I mean, definitely if your vitamin D is low and you know it, then I would recommend taking it. Of course, my disclaimer is check with your doctor or healthcare professional. Rebounding is awesome. I would add in rebounding and then take that to the next level with a cold shower. I think you'll really benefit from that. And then maybe you don't do this, but I was going to say you can rebound it while you're cold showering. Online yoga, perfect. And letting as much sunshine in the space as possible. Yeah, absolutely. One thing you can do is if you can get outside or even through the windows, just stare at the sky. That's a great place to start. Now, most windows will have UV protection, so you don't get the full spectrum of lighting. But if you are going to get outside, then don't wear your sunglasses. That's another thing. A lot of people, it's better to wear a hat than sunglasses. Because the hat at least, you know, keeps the sun directly out of your eyes, but we don't want to reduce the brightness and we don't want to reduce the information that's coming in. So wear a hat if you absolutely need to versus wearing balcony. Sunglasses. Yeah, and you can of course get out on your balcony, but she might not have a balcony. So, if you have one, obviously. So sit by the window. That's a good place to start.
Use the stairs if you can to get outside, because the elevators, you probably don't want to be jammed in next to people. So if you can use the stairs to get outside, that might be a better option if you're afraid to go in the elevator.
Yeah, great call. Cool. What other questions do you guys have? Let's see. Are you finding this helpful? Is this valuable information for you at least? Thanks, Charmaine. Okay, so if you had access to an infrared sauna, would you take a dry sauna before or after a cold shower? And what tunes in a typical day? Oh, what time in the day? So, I found, like, I experiment with my sauna time. I found that when I sauna in the evening, I generally tend to sleep a lot better. It depends on the day. Today, I sauna'd in the morning, and then I took a shower and then followed that up with a cold shower afterwards. I generally don't recommend cold showers in the evening. So if I'm saunaing in the evening, then I won't take a cold shower because it's too stimulating. So cold showers I only do in the mornings.
Recommend vitamin C on high doses.
Okay, so question is, if people have a fever, would you recommend high doses of vitamin C? So the first thing I would recommend if somebody has a fever is, of course, monitor the fever. Check with your doctor. Like, I can't give medical advice on this call, but what I would say is monitor the fever, of course. What I found works really well in reducing a fever, and remember, a fever is a good thing. So certain parts of our immune system are activated at certain temperatures, and the fever breaking a fever is actually a really good sign. That's when people are turning the course. For me personally, if I feel a fever coming on, then I actually heat my body temperature up even more. So I'll lay on a biomat, or I will go into the sauna and heat myself up even more, get my core temperature up so that I can break that fever and come out on the other end faster. So instead of something taking, like, there's been times, probably in the last couple of years, it's happened twice, where I've had chills, and all I did is, instead of letting it drag out, is I got on my biomat, and for 2 hours straight, I slept on the highest setting, and that heat my body up from the inside. And then I woke up 2 hours later and I felt perfectly fine. So, heating your body up is actually a good thing. Now, again, not to give you medical advice, check with your doctor. The question is vitamin C healthful? So one of the things that most people don't know is that vitamin C and sugar compete for the same receptor and mode of entry into the cell. So when we're craving sugar, what we're actually craving is vitamin C, because in nature, vitamin C is found in fruits and vegetables, and like things like peppers. Peppers are actually a fruit. So that's where you're going to find a lot of vitamin C concentration. Oranges are another example. Pretty much all fruits have some form of vitamin C in them, and vitamin C competes with sugar. We talked about it earlier. When you increase sugar above 120, you basically decrease macrophagy function by 75%. So your immune system basically downregulates by 75% when you increase sugar. So I would cut out the sugar, and if you're taking high doses of vitamin C or ascorbic acid, I would recommend taking liposomal vitamin C, because it's way better absorbed, and you could take way more because most times when you take vitamin C in high doses, you kind of get capped out at bowel tolerance, which means that if you take too much of it, you're going to start having loose bowel movements, and that's not comfortable either. So liposomal vitamin C, you can take in pretty high doses, and that's going to flood your system with vitamin C and get that into the cell and help, regulate your immune system. I'm a huge fan, as many of you know, of medicinal mushrooms. Medicinal mushroom mycelium. Mycelium is the immune system of the earth. So the way mushrooms grow under the ground is in a network of fibers called mycelium. And the mycelium acts like the lungs, the nervous system, immune system, and digestive system of the forest. So guess what? It confers and has information in it, and the capability in it to resist mold and toxins and viruses and all of these things that our cells are exposed to. So it has the software and capability in it to do that in our body as well. 50% of our DNA actually comes from mushrooms. So you're half mushroom, half human. And that's why they can work so well. Mushrooms actually breathe in oxygen just like humans do. So they're prone to the same type of biological threats as our immune system is. One big difference between us and mushrooms is our organs are internalized. Mushrooms' organs are externalized. What that means is that like our digestive system, nervous system, lungs, and immune system is inside of our body. If we were to flip our bodies inside out, that's how mushrooms are. So they're externalized, and all their organs basically have the same function as we do. So they digest dying matter in the forest. They breathe in oxygen, just like our lungs do. They sequester carbon dioxide. So they have an important role in the environment and ecosystem. They also detoxify the forest, just like our liver and kidneys and digestive system detoxify for us. So every function that we have, the mushroom also has as well. The mycelium is really the most fascinating part of it because it's all underground, and it's the way the forest shares resources and communicates with itself. So pretty powerful stuff at balancing your immune system. If something can balance the immune system in nature, and you are an extension of nature, then it can do the same thing in your body as well. And Dr. Sami says, yeah, it's Paul Stamets' 6 Ways Mushrooms Can Save the World. If you guys haven't watched Fantastic Fungi, get that movie. You can actually get it now on Vimeo. We ordered it the other day. We saw it in the theaters, and we loved it so much that we ordered it. It's an amazing, amazing movie. Probably the best movie I've seen in my entire life. It's called Fantastic Fungi by Louis Schwartzberg, and Paul Stamets is featured in it. Michael Pollan's featured in it. It's just an outstanding, outstanding movie. So I would definitely check that out. Great way to pass the time with your family, and you'll learn something about what I think is the future. Mushrooms have solved problems that humans haven't even created yet. They're super, super intelligent, super knowledgeable. Like the wisdom that's locked into these things is absolutely astounding. In fact, mushrooms have hypernucleated hyphae, which means that I don't want to get too geeky on mushrooms, but the extension of mushrooms. So imagine that this is the mycelium is my hand, and then it's spreading and it's growing and it's branching like this. Now imagine that the tip of my thumb and each of my fingers has thousands and thousands of little brains inside of it and decision-making capabilities. So it can decide and make decisions just like a human being can. It's pretty amazing to watch mushrooms make decisions based on information that they're presented. In fact, there's a great video that you can look up. If you type in mushrooms and Tokyo subway system on YouTube, you'll see about a 2 to 3 minute video. And in that video, the mushrooms basically redesign the Tokyo subway system more efficiently than the engineers that designed the Tokyo subway system. And they do it within 26 hours. And this is like a slime mold fungus that does this. So what took them years and years of planning, I understand, of course, the mushroom just draws the lines. Of course, you've got to engineer all of the things. I understand that. But the design that it drew out was absolutely perfect. And it was more efficient than the design that the engineers drew out. So these are highly, highly intelligent species that we take for granted. If you look at every organ in your body looks exactly like a mushroom. Your brain has a mushroom structure to it. Your lungs have a mushroom structure to them. Your pancreas looks like a mushroom. Your kidneys look like a mushroom. Your liver looks like a mushroom. So there's genes that we share with this kingdom called Hox genes, and that's what gives our organ systems structure. And these genes structure also determines function. So the way something is shaped is also deterministic in the function that it has the capability of carrying out. So there's a reason that our brain is shaped in a certain way. There's a reason our lungs are shaped a certain way. There's a reason our digestive system is shaped a certain way. It confers information and it holds information in that shape. So if we eat something that looks like something in our body, the reason it's shaped that way is because it carries with it specific knowledge and information. So this is why reishi is one of the most powerful detoxifying mushrooms. If you look at reishi, it looks exactly like your liver. And if you turn it on its side, it looks exactly like your kidneys. It's not by coincidence that it looks identical to those tissues. It's one of nature's most powerful detoxifying mushrooms, and it looks like your most powerful detoxifying organ. If you look at lion's mane mushroom has in it the most powerful brain growth neurotropic factor ever discovered in history, in nature. And if you look at lion's mane mushroom and you cut it in half, it looks exactly like the brain. It's not a coincidence, because the structure determines the function. So if I eat something that has the same shape as something in my body, there's a merging of intelligence, there's a merging of information, there's an overlap in the mathematical software that comprises that structure and that food that gives information to that organ system. And you intuitively have known this your entire life. Your grandmother probably told you this, but it was not part of the reductionistic model of medicine to teach you this information. Because remember, medicine wants to understand how and why and the details, and science really wants to understand how and why and details in order to understand why things happen. And if they don't understand why things happen, that doesn't mean that the benefit doesn't exist. And sometimes the information comes thousands of years later after documenting the benefit. So we've known for thousands of years that reishi is good for you, but only now are we doing the research on it, or only now do we have the tools to sequester the individual parts of that mushroom and to test it using the scientific method. So there's all kinds of ways that we can use medicinal mushrooms to boost our health. We use a 5 mushroom blend. We add it to this beautiful drink that we have every day. Who wants to know what's in this drink? Just type in yes, and I'll be happy to share the ingredients with you. We have this drink every morning, and sometimes in the afternoon. It's caffeine free. It has maca in it, cacao powder, medicinal mushrooms. It's got honey. Deepa doesn't like honey in hers. I love honey in mine. What else do we put in there?
Spores.
We put in reishi spores, reishi mushroom powder spores, and I think that's it. So cacao powder, maca powder, dandy blend. That's the other thing. So if you're looking for a coffee substitute, let's say you want to have a nice grounding drink in the evening and you don't want to drink coffee. I enjoy coffee. I haven't had coffee in a few weeks actually, personally, but I enjoy it. But if I wanted to have something like that in the afternoon, if I wanted to have a warming, grounding, delicious drink in the afternoon that tasted like coffee but didn't have any caffeine in it, then you can use something called Dandy Blend. And Dandy Blend you can buy on Amazon or you can buy at your local health food store, is a roasted dandelion powder, and it's got a few other ingredients in there, and it tastes just like coffee. Because it's dandelion root, it's also very powerful to help you detoxify. So it's a great medicinal, this is a great medicinal drink that helps boost your immune function, that helps increase dopamine, because cacao contains a compound called PEA, which looks almost similar to dopamine in our body. And so you get something that kind of increases dopamine levels. You get something that increases vitality in the maca powder. You get something that tastes delicious, something that you look forward to, something that helps promote healthy elimination. So it's like a functional drink that you can have, and you can really have this as many times a day as you want. Okay. Now it's not improving one system in your body, it's improving all the systems in your body. Okay, so there's something in here for your gut, for your brain. The 5 mushroom blend that we use is from a company called Harmonic Arts, and that has lion's mane, reishi, turkey tail chaga, and cordyceps mushroom in it. So it's got our 5 favorite mushrooms in there, and it's a powder that we add to the mix as well. All right. Somebody's asking, Ayurvedic teacher would not recommend mushrooms because they grow in the dark. Can you explain this from an Ayurvedic perspective? So there's actually 2 different types of mushrooms. And the mushrooms that I'm referring to, the 5 mushrooms that I mentioned, are all polypore mushrooms. These are mushrooms that actually grow on trees. So they don't grow in the dark, they actually grow in the sunlight. They do grow on rotting matter, but they grow like in the sun. So if you were to go and find turkey tail, you would see turkey tail growing all over the stump on a dead tree. If you were to see reishi growing, you would see reishi growing in plain daylight. Now, there are mushrooms that grow underground, okay, and these are mushrooms that we call Gild mushrooms. So these mushrooms oftentimes are not the healthiest mushrooms. These are not always what we would consider medicinal mushrooms. One of my favorite Gild mushrooms is Psilocybin mushroom, which is a psychoactive mushroom. But that's a whole different story. That's a whole different conversation. But most of the other mushrooms, like portobello mushrooms, button mushrooms, oyster mushrooms, those are mushrooms that will typically have Gild presentation, and they're very short-lived. Mushrooms do grow in the sun, but not all of them. So the majority of the biomass of the mushroom is under the earth. It's actually in the mycelium network under the surface. And most people don't eat that. They eat usually the fruiting body of it. And when you eat the mushroom, you're usually using it in some sort of tincture. So you don't eat reishi mushroom like you would like button mushrooms on your pizza. You would use reishi mushroom in a alcohol tincture, or you would use it in a soup, or you would use it in some sort of extracted form. So we're not eating these mushrooms on their own. They're actually very bitter. They would not be very tasty. Reishi is actually something that's bitter is actually good for your liver and your kidneys and your gallbladder. That's why reishi is so bitter. So you wouldn't normally eat these mushrooms on their own. You would extract the alcohol and water-based nutrients from them.
Someone was asking, are mushrooms good during pregnancy? And the answer to that would be yes. You can. There's no contraindications with medicinal mushrooms in pregnancy.
Yeah, and always, if you're not sure, check with your doctor,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we just want to make sure we're not giving you medical advice without knowing your history. But yeah, mushrooms, as far as I know, are not contraindicated. Certainly, I don't forage mushrooms personally. I purchase them in extracted forms. I collect mushrooms, so I have a mushroom collection in my house. Got some pretty big ones actually, but I don't actually eat foraged mushrooms. The only time I had a foraged mushroom was a lion's mane. Mm-hmm. And we found this huge lion's mane on this silver birch tree by my house. And at first I was going to let it live and let it be, but then I knew that if I didn't take it, it would either dissolve into nothing again or somebody else would take it. So I brought it home. It was filled with all kinds of little potato bugs in there. Cleaned all of those out, and then we fried it up on the saucepan, and it was delicious. It tasted. I don't think I've ever had shrimp, so I don't know what that tastes like, but people say it tastes like shrimp. Oh, here's Devin. Thank you for check out this mushroom. And this one, yes. So these are some red belted. Here's a red belted polypore, and here's a birch polypore. These are quite big, actually. They're probably a few years old. All right. Okay. Hannah saying, can we have the psilocybin conversation? Sure. What's your question about that? She disappeared. Okay. So, would like to know more. So psilocybin mushrooms are a plant medicine. They are a type of mushroom. There's different types of psilocybin mushrooms. The most common one that you'll hear about is Psilocybin cubensis. And these are what people refer to as magic mushrooms. Now, with any psychedelic, you want to take these psychedelics in a controlled environment, and you want to have the right set and setting. So the set is the intention that you set into the journey, and the setting is who you're doing it with and the environment that you're in. You can certainly do it on your own, in your own room in the complete darkness if you want, or you can do it in a group if you can find someone to help you out with that. And what essentially happens is you can take it in the form of a ground up powder in a tea, or you could just eat the mushrooms if you want, or you can blend them up into a smoothie if you want. A hero's dose is typically 3 to 5 grams. And so what happens about half an hour into your journey, you start essentially, all borders and boundaries start dissolving. And you start to realize, and you get a deep sense of oneness with everything around you. If you're listening to music, you become part of the music. If you're looking at the trees, you become part of the trees. And you get overwhelmed with this beautiful sense of love, this beautiful sense of wisdom, these beautiful visuals, what I would describe as fractal shapes. And hidden within these fractal shapes is infinite amounts of data and information. So what's happening is fractals are actually multi-dimensional shapes that have infinite surface area, which means that they have infinite data storage capacity. So you could look at a fractal, and these are visuals are happening inside of your head, and you're processing in some cases years, and in some cases lifetimes worth of information. So when people say their life flashes in front of them when they have a near-death experience, it's actually not what you think. It's not scene by scene like a movie that their life flashes in front of them. It's the entire movie happening at the same time simultaneously, and all of that data is stored in that fractal shape. And your brain, because your brain is a fractal, it can process all of that information. So you have all this information that's, just being downloaded into your system simultaneously, all at the same time. And you're at the same time being flooded with this immense sense of joy and love and oneness. So it's really, like, I would describe it as the most important, most memorable experience of my friend's life. Not just kidding, my life. So it's one of those things that is highly recommended for the right person. We've seen some fantastic outcomes with people who have gone in with their PTSD, with finding their sense of purpose in life, with answering some very deep questions that they've had, with dealing with traumatic experiences they've had in the past, with dealing with things like forgiveness. There's all kinds of things that people have had profound breakthroughs. So that's been my experience. I don't know if anyone else wants to share what their experience has been like. But yeah, and here's the thing with magic mushrooms, you want to make sure you know someone who's going to be able to get them for you, good quality ones. They've been decriminalized in some states like Denver. Also in Oakland, they're decriminalized. But what you want to know is what was the intention of these mushrooms when they were grown? What's the intention you set into the journey? And the integration that takes place afterwards is very important. So being able to talk to somebody, communicate with somebody, articulate your experience, that's also part of the journey. The total journey, if you take about 3 to 5 grams, will last about 3 to 5 hours. And then it takes about a week for the glow to go away. You're totally functional within a few hours, but you're going to feel like this beautiful buzz inside your body and your heart for about a week afterwards. So it truly is like a profound experience for people. And if you look at studies that they're doing, this is mushrooms, people say whenever people complain about 5G, I always refer to 5G as 5 grams. So 5 grams of mushrooms are probably the solution to most of our world crises right now. I think that every president, every prime minister, every person who has any political power over people should take 5 grams of mushroom before they take office in anything that they do. I actually, interestingly enough, I almost don't trust people who've never done them, because your life is so different afterwards. How you look at things is so radically different. And there's this unstatable understanding. So it would be hard to teach somebody what you learned in that experience. You can't I can't even articulate it to you, because there's all this data that's coming to me, rushing to me. You have to experience it to know it. But it's almost hard to have a conversation with somebody who hasn't experienced that. Now, Steve Jobs, one of the things that he was famous for saying is that he wouldn't work with anybody in his immediate surroundings who hadn't done LSD. So LSD is another psychoactive compound, and it gives you a deeper, profound understanding of the world, and it dissolves your ego, right? When you merge into everything, it's because your ego is basically dissolved, and you have this amazing sense of oneness, and you realize that everything is connected. So yeah, so that's been my experience. Does anyone else have any questions for me? I'm gonna wrap things up. My family's getting a little restless, and they want to spend time with me. So I'm going to jump off here. But if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. You can always reach out to me privately if you need to. My email is Sachin. Yep.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
I have put in the chat. I don't think you're seeing it. I just want to understand if you what is your take on fat soluble vitamin C, ascorbyl palmitate?
Like liposomal vitamin C or fat?
No, like I never really I've heard of it and I've seen the word before. I never really thought about it until I was looking for some vitamin C, and everything. Of course, there was a run on things in, like, let's say, pure encapsulations, and so they did have the ascorbyl palmitate and fat soluble. So when I looked into it, essentially, it's absorbed into the tissues more as fat soluble, etc. And then I read some things about it relating to collagen, etc. So I was just wondering if you had any experience with it or any thoughts about it.
Does it cause any bowel tolerance issues? Do you know? So I don't have any experience with it, to answer your question. So I couldn't comment on it.
Mike went out, so I didn't even hear what you said. So I'll come back to.
No, I said that I don't have any experience with it. We've been using the liposomal vitamin C.
Oh, yeah. I'm familiar with that. It was just that all the other forms were sold out except that. And I was just wondering for future reference.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the fact that all the other ones were sold out and this one wasn't makes me question it.
Yeah, well, it eventually went sold out as well. So I was just, wondering, because I know the other water soluble ones, to your point, would be excreted. Yes, liposomal would be the optimal choice. And then I was just wondering about this other option because, fat soluble doesn't make it necessarily bad. I just don't know why it's not talked about more than it is. I know what I was reading was in a dermatology area, was promoting it as well.
We're live in our collagen. Okay. Cool. Anyone else have any questions? Okay. Well, I hope you found this helpful. I hope you had a chance to reflect and you learned something new. Before you all jump off, I'd love for each of you to share your one biggest takeaway. So just type in the chat like what your one biggest takeaway was. And this will give all of us a chance to kind of see what answers you're responding with. And then that can, spark somebody's interest to go down that rabbit hole a little bit further. Or it can, some of us, when there's 40 people on a call like this, there's 40 different conversations, 40 different presentations going on at the same time. So I love to hear what each and every one of your biggest takeaways were. And I would also love to, do this again. So if you found this valuable and, if there's so much that we could share, there's so much information that we can offer you, I'd love to do this again and spend some more time with you guys. Okay, Mike says he gets sugar cravings that he fights. Yeah, so if you have chewable vitamin C, then you could have that instead of having even a piece of fruit. If you're trying to keep your glycemic index low and you're trying to keep your carbs low, you could have chewable vitamin C, and that does the trick for a lot of people. You're welcome. Thanks, Lana. Interesting fact, the Chinese letter for chaos and opportunity are pretty much the same letter. So, just something to keep in mind that, amidst the chaos, there's a new world of brewing, which means that there's new opportunities that never even existed before are going to present themselves to all of us because of the new world that's emerging. What people are going to be demanding after all of this after the dust settles, is going to be different than what they were demanding before. I think everyone being off work for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, when we go back to work, what we're going to realize is how much we value the relationships. Maybe not so much, and some of us are going to realize how much we value the work that we were doing, but I think a lot of people are going to have this awakening that they might even, leave their job that's no longer serving them, that they've outgrown. If you're the same person a year later after working somewhere, you're not the same person. You're worse because you're a year older and you're in the same role doing the same thing and you haven't learned anything or you haven't grown. So wherever you are, whatever you do, whatever you go back to, make sure that you're in a constant state of growth, because if you're not growing, you're dying. And what I'm realizing, a lot of people, I've surveyed people, what their greatest fear in all of this is not dying of coronavirus, or it's not their family member dying of coronavirus. What their greatest fear is an unlived life. I mean, that's why when children pass away at a young age, what we're concerned about is they didn't get to live their life. Right? We're concerned more about that and not even as happy for them as we can be that they're not suffering anymore. Right? So it's the unlived life that we all fear more than anything else. So what are you going to do to live your life? What are the things that you should be doing or could be doing that would make your life a little bit more complete? Who do you need to talk to? Who do you need to say sorry to? Who do you need to say thank you to? Who do you need to help? Where do you need to be? Who do you need to be there for? I mean, this is a time to ask those type of questions. Okay. Well, I love you all. I hope you have an amazing rest of your weekend. Kudos to all of you for hanging in there. And like I said, we'll do this again. I'll keep you guys posted on when we can do it. But have an amazing rest of your weekend, okay? Bye for now.